Hey everybody, and welcome back. It is that time again, Formula 1 2019, and we are headed out to Italy for Ferrari's home race after a pretty decent result at Spa.
On your success in the
We could have, I think, done a little better if we weren't robbed of some of our pace from the rain at the end, but pretty happy with that. Here we are to another power circuit. Monza is basically a bunch of straights with a couple chicanes. It's called the Temple of Speed for a reason. It's quick, so we can take a peek through. Luckily, our drag arrow reduction came through fine. The weight redistribution, we did have a failure in one of our downforce areas. And again, we've got rain at the tail end of the race on the schedule. So we'll see how hard we can run, how fast we can run in the early start stages of the race. And hopefully that rain doesn't affect us too hard. But here we are. You see the failure to that part. We did have a completion. And we now know what our regulation changes are going to be. We have two categories. The regulations are going to change in our durability, which luckily we've really only put one thing into because we've been focused on upgrades elsewhere, and our chassis department, which I'll take it. It could have been worse. We could have had an aero redevelopment, and that would have cost us a ton. But we've got 8 weeks left to do essentially seven readaptations upgrade wise. So we have to repurchase these parts for reduced costs. And get them ready for next year. So that's going to slow our chassis development a little bit, but I think if we co-develop, we adapt one part and develop a new part or two every week, we can still continue to move the car forward over the closing stages of the season, as we're finally starting to find some pace. But I would like to get that chassis department ironed out pretty quickly. But so we're going to pop into our part management. This is what we've been saving set 3 for. Set 3 is basically entirely untouched from any used parts. So we are going to be slapping those on when it comes race time. Now I did decide that I'm going to run the current parts on there for the practice sessions, and then throw on the completely unused parts set 3 for the race, because engine power is critical here. But we're going to go ahead and jump into qualifying.
Practice is all wrapped up as we move into qualifying here at the Autodromo di Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. Any moment now, the teams will be heading out onto the track. And I'm here, of course, with Anthony Davidson on what has turned out to be a very pleasant day indeed. No weather to interfere, no problems on the track, so absolutely no room for error.
That's right, Crofty. It's looking good out there at the moment. Each team will have their own game plan for this session, and of course, once the cars leave the garage, they'll be under parc fermé conditions, so any last-minute adjustments need to be done right here and now. Beyond that, it's all up to the driver. Who can keep their tyres in the right temperature? Who can hit their apexes? No race fuel on board these days, of course. These are the fastest cars we've had in a long, long time, and it's right here in qualifying where they're at their absolute peak. Let's get started.
Alright, we're popping on for our first lap and our tour of Monza, the Temple of Speed, the Italian GP's home race here. So we're down this very, very long front straight drag strip, hard into the first chicane, all the way down first gear, 45-mile-an-hour corner. And then we are back on the throttle for the flat-out right-hander, use all the downforce, Curva Grande, which sets us up for this next short little tunnel straight. It's where we're going to hit yet another big chicane here. This one a little quicker than the first. Carry that second apex at about 80 miles an hour, and then we're into the Lesmo's corners, which are going to turn us back towards the straight finish line. Lesmo 1 is a little tighter than Lesmo 2. There's some good banking on these corners. If you can get your car down to the apex, you can carry a lot of speed. But here we are down the next long DRS straight, down the hill. Excellent overtaking area into the braking zone for the Ascari chicane, a much wider chicane. You can carry a lot of speed. You got to catch that apex just right on the exit so you can take as much momentum down this long straight here before you hit the brake zone into Parabolica, the long right-hander that turns you back towards the start-finish straight. Once you clip that apex, you want to get full on the throttle as soon as you can and basically swing the car wide to the outside, and you are across the line for this long straightaway during the race. So we only turned in a couple of laps in Q1. We went P7, so we were pretty safely through to Q2. And so here we are finishing up our first flying lap of Q2. We decided to go out on the mediums first to see if we couldn't put a good enough time to give us some opportunity for our strategy. So we crossed the line. We are P9 right now. We went back to back straight into a second lap. You can see we've improved by about a half second. We fell down to P12 as other cars crossed the line. But looks like it's going to be about a half second improvement up to P9 at the moment. So we're going to chill in the garage. We got about 2.5 minutes left in the quality session. We are sitting right on the bubble of 10th place right now on the medium. So we are going to try and time our outlap as good as we can to leave as little time left on as possible. We're going to run hard, and if it seems like we're going to lose the position, we're going to go ahead and keep pushing, which by the time we got to Parabolica, we dropped to 13th. But on the soft compound, we are running a full second ahead of what we were on the mediums, and we actually end up being the fastest car in Q2. So it would have been nice to have made it to Q3 on those mediums, have the opportunity for a little bit of variation in strategy during the race, but we made Q3. And so here we are on our second lap of Q3, and we actually managed to get ourselves in a position to get a good tow down this straight from Verstappen. You can see the way our time delta jumped from the red up to almost 3/10 up on that short straight. We got a great run, plus the hole in the air that Max Verstappen was punching. We get a good run through Parabolica, and we go fourth fastest at the time. We get out for our third flying lap of Q3. We are sitting fifth fastest right now, but we are slightly improving. We are about just about 2/10 up as we're about to cross the line here, and that'll move us temporarily into P3. But as the final laps cross the line, we finish Q3 and we'll start the grid P4. So another great result in quali.
It's race day here in Italy once again. Monza, home to so many records. The smallest winning margin, for example. Do you remember in 1971, Peter Gethin beat Ronnie Peterson to the line by 1/100th of a second. There were 40 overtakes for the lead alone in 1965, and Kimi Raikkonen clocked a record top speed of 230 miles per hour here, just over a decade ago. So there's a lot to live up to then for all of our drivers today. We're 12 miles northeast of Milan for today's Grand Prix at a Monza circuit where we can expect top speeds of around 215 miles per hour. 11 corners on this 3.6 mile track, with 7 of those coming in the form of chicanes. And with a good slipstream and DRS open, there should be plenty of opportunity for some passing here today. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Let's start with the new Alfa Romeo driver. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Oldtimer, Charles Leclerc and Verstappen, Gasly, Raikkonen, Russell and Nico Hülkenberg, Weber, Stroll, Lando Norris and Sainz, Perez, Magnussen, Devon Butler and Roman Grosjean. Albon and Daniel Ricciardo fills the last spot on the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
You can run side by side into the Rettifilio, but don't brake too late on these cold tyres or you will hit someone.
Alright, so Mercedes locks out the front row. We split the Ferraris in our starting strategy. We're going to go ahead and take a peek at our current strategy projections. It looks like the rain will be coming at just the very tail end of the race. We're going to stick with the default strategy of the softs onto the mediums. So here we are, 5 red lights on the grid. Lights out, and away we go. A little bit of wheel spin at the start. You're going to see Leclerc get just by us. We're going to go ahead and tuck into the slipstream, and Verstappen is going to look up towards the inside of us. We're going to go ahead and leave him room as we make our way around the chicane. We have to kind of edge out a little bit and lose some momentum just so we don't swing wide into him. And this lead pack of 4 cars is something we're going to try and just hang tight with until DRS is enabled. So if we can stay within 1 second of that group, and I think we have a pretty good chance. We're running a great engine spec. We've got a decent pace in the corners as well. We are running a slightly higher downforce setup than a lot of the other cars I'm sure are running. So that'll allow us to make up ground, especially through the Lesmo section mostly. But we've got plenty of engine power and straight line speed to at least hang for the next couple of laps. But P5 is a pretty good spot to be running in right now. Mercedes 1-2, Ferrari 3-4. And through the Sector 2 timing line, we are 0.6 back. So we really haven't lost too much ground. Pretty decent run out of Ascari there. Not the best, but not too bad. We've got Pierre Gasly behind us. It looks like he's made his way through his old teammate Max Verstappen, as Gasly was swapped with Daniel Ricciardo at Renault earlier this season, just before Spa, where unfortunately Ricciardo had a DNF in his first race with his new old team.
Looking at some gearbox wear, try to keep your number of shifts to a minimum.
And bad news already. We are starting to see some gearbox wear. It's only lap 2 of this race, and so far this season we've had a couple of tracks where we've had that gearbox wear message, and every time we've gotten it, we've lost a gear at some point in the race. So it's just a matter of time, I feel. But we're gonna go ahead and push as hard as we can. This is gonna be the last race this gearbox is gonna run, obviously. So we're not gonna worry about. We're gonna
There's some kind of problem with their car.
make good while the sun is shining, you know. Here we are for our second trip through Lesmo, basically still holding the same position to the Ferraris in front of us as we had before. They've not really turned up their pace, and obviously one of the downfalls of our car, now that we've gotten the aero kind of sorted out and we're running a lot better in that regard, is our chassis development, as we've not put a lot of effort into our tire degradation. So we are very good on a 1 lap quality pace on fresh tires. As you've seen the last couple of races, we've typically qualified and then dropped a couple positions, and we're good early runs. You can see Hamilton and Hamilton and Vettel tangle in front of us, and we have to get way out of the throttle and parabolica to avoid it, and unfortunately us swinging wide, they got the positions back. So while their battling would have been a good opportunity for us to get by, their erraticness and their contact made us have to dodge out of the way to not get caught up and lose our own front wing. But as a result, we are right on them as we head through our first opportunity of DRS coming up after this next chicane in the Lesmos corners. So we just got to stay tight with them. You can see on the mini map on the bottom left there the lighter blue dot, and you can just see him on the screen there of Valtteri Bottas is getting away from the pack a little bit now that they've been kind of tangling up. So if he can manage to break that 1 second gap, it'll be tough to catch him, because he'll be able to run in clean air. He's not going to have any DRS help for them to catch up behind him. So somebody's really going to have to extend and run well to catch up with them. But we've got Verstappen behind us, and you can see looks like Leclerc is going to try and make his way past Hamilton. They've kind of tangled and run side by side through Ascari, so that gives us a chance on a great run. As everybody stacks up, we're down the inside of Vettel, and we are on the brakes a little later than Leclerc. We are wheel to wheel with him through parabolica. We're going to go ahead and get a little better exit and kind of squeeze him out, and now we are going to have DRS and slipstream on Lewis Hamilton. So we've got a great run to make up essentially 3 positions in 1 corner. We've gone from P5 to P2, crossing the line down into the first chicane after the long straight. So an amazing turn of events there. A couple scraps ahead of us that we were really able to take advantage of, and we're running in the highest position we've run all season so far. And we're running in the highest position we've run all season so far, P2. So now we've got to set ourselves up and try and get a good run through the Lesmos corners as the next DRS zone is coming up on us, and they are definitely within that DRS range. So we are going to crank up our ERS deployment to try and hold station and stay in front of this group. Just a matter of defending it. Luckily, not a good enough run for them through that DRS zone into Ascari yet. They've definitely closed the gap on us, though. So we are going to push on and see. I don't think we're going to quite have the pace in order to catch P1 of Valtteri in front of us. But if we can manage to continue to run in the podium positions here, it'll feel pretty darn good. So there you go. You can see the Ferrari attacking Hamilton, and now we've got to look, kind of defend both ways. He's a little later, Leclerc, on the brakes from us into turn 1 there. And 2, we have to kind of adjust our line as he doesn't get fully cleanly by us. We were looking to actually cover the actual racing line, so that compromises our exit a little bit through Cover Grande. That allows Lewis Hamilton to kind of have a peek around the outside of us, but we shut the door before he starts to pull even with us, as we are allowed to have that racing line. Go ahead and jump a full lap ahead as we've managed to defend from Lewis Hamilton and slightly close the gap back up on old boy Charles Leclerc. We are going to have a DRS down the main straight on him, so we are going to tuck in to the slipstream, see what kind of move we can get. He's going to cover the inside, go defensive. We are going to be late on the brakes, leave him space around the inside to get the next line through turn 2, and we get a great exit out of the chicane and get a good run now through Cover Grande and take back that P2 position in front of him, and hopefully he'll start to see some attack from Lewis Hamilton and give us a chance to breathe a little bit. But I know that's a little bit of wishful thinking as we try to continue to drive our way towards the front of the field. Really a good race so far as Leclerc is filling up our mirrors through the Lesmos corners. And we are now going to be under attack from DRS, so we duck to the inside. That's going to be a very easy pass for him. We just want to tuck into his slipstream as much as we can. Now we're going to go ahead and hop ahead to lap 8 as Leclerc is starting to pull away from us. We've managed to stay just inside DRS range, so it doesn't allow Lewis Hamilton great attacking, but he got a great run off of Lesmo 2 on us. And so he's going to go down the inside of Ascari. We leave him a little bit of space. He kind of forces us off the track. But we managed to hold position until we clip the curbing and really lose the back end of the car. So poor acceleration. We're going to be under attack. Hamilton's getting by us. Vettel's going to look to the outside as well. We're going to tuck our nose in right behind Hamilton as he cuts to the racing line. We managed to get in behind him and squeeze Vettel out. We are back down to P4, but Hamilton is too far away from Leclerc to get DRS. We are going to go around the outside of him, use that overspeed we get from DRS, almost 210 miles an hour into the braking zone. And we are nice and brave on the brakes and able to get just by him. And so let's see now if we can run back up and try and catch Charles. But we're going to hop ahead, end of lap 10. It is time to make the pits. We're going to basically have the same strategy as the Ferrari in front of us. We're getting off the softs at the same time onto the mediums, the yellow wall tires. Let's see if we can have a good quick pit stop, not lose any track position, and we'll see where we come out as we step on the throttle. We are part of the first group of cars to pit, so we're effectively trying to perform a good undercut. You're going to see Grosjean go flying by us at speed, and we come out of the pits in P15, which is not too bad. We are one position down on Leclerc, about the same time gap though, so he didn't really lose anything there. So we'll see if the undercut is going to work out against those other cars running the soft compound. But we are lap 11 of 27 here, not one of the longer races on the calendar, and it goes by quick. You cover a ton of ground. You're moving so quick with these laps. So you know, mid 125s was kind of what I can run on this track right now. So that allows us a decent time of race, nothing too crazy long. And we've got Singapore coming up next, which is the longest race on the calendar. That was going to take a while, but we're going to go ahead and use our superior driving ability. I wouldn't say superior car, although I don't think the R&D chart's telling the whole story. We make the pass cleanly through the Ascari chicane. He's going to get in the slipstream of us as we come down, getting ready to brake for Parabolica. He looks to the inside, but does not have enough to get through us. So we are on the throttle hard, and now we're going to let that Mercedes engine turn way up as you see a few other cars diving into the pits. And we are just right behind our friend Charles Leclerc. You can see the other Ferraris now taking their pit stop of Ferrari and Mercedes of Vettel and Hamilton. And we are now splitting the Ferraris, much like we did on the grid originally with the start. But we are sitting P5 now, and it looks like there's a what is that? A Toro Rosso and a Racing Point, I believe, are effectively leading. But we are net P3 right now, so we've managed to hold that podium position through the pit stops so far. Too far back of Leclerc to get some any DRS assistance, but we have enough of a lead on Vettel to keep him at bay for the while, and we're all running the same strategy. Basically, they just pitted one lap different. You can see one of the Mercedes just dove into the pits, and it looks like a Racing Point is in as well, that pink dot, and I believe you'll see that Toro Rosso dive in as well. So we are going to make our two passes through the pit lane, and there you have it. We are back to P3. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to lap 22, and you see as we get on the power coming out of that second chicane, we've lost fourth gear. It's happened. Vettel has managed to gradually make his way up to us, and you can see as we downshifted into that corner, skipping fourth gear, the engine brake took hold, and we lost the back end, and that's going to allow Vettel to get a good run on us down this straight. Luckily, we managed to save the car. That could have gone very bad as we went across the grass, but we were able to keep control and get back on the road. But now we're going to have to adjust kind of our gearings through a few of the corners here. Luckily, the turbo hybrids have pretty good low-end torque thanks to the electric deployment. We are able to, even though you're normally getting on the power in Parabolica in fourth gear, we're running decently high revs, so we're able to run fifth gear here and still get a good run. We do have DRS, and that's going to help us out, so we're going to get our position back from Vettel down into the braking zone of the chicane, but we have to kind of sit on fifth gear before we take that click down to third. Otherwise, as you can see, the tires have a tendency to step out as that engine does not like the not smooth run down, but Vettel's going to get a pretty good run down into the second chicane. This was another chicane where we really are hurting with that loss of gear. We're locking up a little bit more. We relied on the engine braking through fourth gear and just kind of the feel of running it, and same with these corners through the Lesmos corners. We ran them mostly in fourth gear, so now fifth gear is a little low.
Right, we've looked at the gearbox issue, but I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Try and drive around it. We'll just have to hope for the best. Remember that you have a lot of torque in these power units, so you should be able to stay in higher gears.
Yeah, so we're just going to have to deal with what we can. We Vettel made a move on us through Ascari. We kind of squeezed him out to keep the position. He edged out, which wasn't the cleanest move we made, but kind of dealing with this gearbox issue is a little bit distracting. I'm not hitting the lines quite like I'd like to. But we're getting closer to the final phases of the race here. The rain hasn't quite yet come.
The gap to the car ahead is 6.4
We're going to see how far we can make it before that rain starts to roll on us. And as we hit the brakes into the first chicane, we saw clean shifting. So fourth gear has decided to return to us. So hopefully we can run our laps a little cleaner and make up a little ground and give ourselves a little bit of a cushion over Sebastian behind us. No, not the crab from The Little Mermaid, although they both wear red. Talking about the German. But you can see we're starting to feel some of the effects of tire degradation through a couple of these corners. We're starting to figure out the line through Lesmos. I got a little more comfortable through Lesmo 2, especially. You dive it in towards the apex early, you can really ride that banking a lot more. But Vettel is closed way up on us through Ascari there. And we go a little bit wide on the exit, but he is definitely within slipstream of us. And if we hold our position through Parabolica, it's going to be a battle. He's going to have DRS down the main front straight on us. But we go a little bit defensive, swing back to the racing line, but he is right on us and has gotten a great exit through Parabolica. And he is going to essentially get by us before even hitting the DRS line, and he is able to really open up the wing and is pushing a lot. So he's able to slot in fully in front of us before we even hit the braking zone. And we have lost that position after the battle. We got a little wheel spin on the exit of the chicane, and that allows him to open up a little bit of a gap to us. And you can see raindrops are now starting to fall. There's only about 2.5 laps left of this race. So we have a big lockup there as the track's starting to get wet, and we kind of cut the corner, rumble through the chicane to keep from going off into the gravel section there. But now it's time to wrestle the car a little bit. And the AI has still been a little better. By the time the next race, Singapore comes out, the patch that has apparently balanced the AI a little more in the wet has come out. But even on dry tires, the AI runs pretty decent lap times in the wet with that slippery surface. Now, one of the things we're doing here as we come down this final back straight into Parabolica, I keep watching the mini-map to see if any of the leaders are going to dive in. Verstappen behind us, you can see him slowing down. It's a yellow flag through that area, and that's unfortunate for Red Bull. Last race, the DNF to Daniel Ricciardo, and now it's looking like, yep, Max Verstappen now out of the session, a DNF. He was running pretty well, but that's going to allow Lewis Hamilton through into 5th position. You see DRS is now disabled thanks to the wetness. None of the leaders have come in, and I highly doubt anybody's going to come in for the final lap. So it looks like we are just going to have to be wrestling the car for the next basically lap and a half through the wet. Another lockup. You see the car sliding around. 2 tires on the gravel as we're just trying to keep the car on track. I think at this stage, not a lot of hope to catch up to Vettel on these slicks on this damp track. It's mostly going to be, can we run good enough times to keep Lewis Hamilton behind us, as he has definitely been closing up on us. So we hit down the hill and get ready to hit the braking zone for Ascari. A double lockup, and the back end just steps out, and we are across the gravel on the grass. We are taking a little bit of an off-road expedition, picking up some dirt, you know, why not? And that's going to lose us any hope of catching Sebastian in front of us, and is definitely going to leave us susceptible to what Lewis Hamilton can do over the last lap. But so we head through Parabolica. We were down 80 miles an hour, basically the speed we were doing the second chicane in earlier, and you can see just how much I'm wrestling the car while trying to accelerate. There's tons of oversteer. The car just wants to snap around on me. Any throttle wants to just turn the car facing the wrong direction, which I do not want. So once we finally wrestle it down and lose a ton more time to Lewis Hamilton, you can now see him in the view behind us. We are very ginger on the brakes into the first chicane, and a little bit of snap as we spin up the wheels a little bit, and you can see him smoothly but slowly on the power. And you have to be kind of brave through Curva Grande, trusting your downforce. It's not quite fully flat anymore now that we're on these slicks. I'm sure if we were running inters, we'd be able to run it a little harder, but none of the leaders came in, and I was kind of reacting to them on strategy. So we're finishing this race on some dry tires in wet conditions, but our streak of wet races continues. We are week 14, and our first rains came at Austria in week 9. So we are running tons of races without rain ever letting us just have a full race by ourselves to have a good time with. And I feel we were running a pretty strong race until the rain started to hurt us. And obviously, you know, again, the tire degradation, Seb was able to get through. We maybe could have battled back with the DRS still open, and you can see there Valtteri Bottas, the race winner for Mercedes this week, and we just have to wrestle our way through Parabolica one last time. Hamilton closed up a lot of the gap, but it looks like we are gonna manage to just hold. You can see how close he was in that picture-in-picture there. He almost reeled us in, but we finally made it one spot off the podium. P4, our best result of the year so far.
That's it for another Grand Prix and a fantastic win for Mercedes. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
All right, and on the podium again, Mercedes #1, but then the 2-3 for Ferrari at their home race. A pretty good result for them.
So let's review the updated driver standings. It wasn't the best weekend for our championship leader, and their advantage at the top has been reduced. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Well, Crofty, Daniel Ricciardo would have to be my driver of the day. It's less about what he did right, but how little he did wrong. Perfect driving.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Another team that excelled today was Williams, who make further progress up the table. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
So we're going to go ahead and take a peek at the standings. Lewis Hamilton still far and away the leader. We managed to jump Kimi Raikkonen and get within 3 points of the racing point of Sergio Perez now. And our team has moved up past Renault in this tight midfield battle.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. Some excellent overtaking moves from your former teammate today. Did he learn some of them from you?
You know, hopefully with this car and this team, I still have a few lessons to teach him.
You really looked in control of your car out there. Your team must be thrilled.
Yeah, and I couldn't do this without a great team behind me. You know, we've been developing the car, we've been making it better.
How did your team respond to the poor conditions today?
Oh man, absolutely brilliantly. Rain or shine, they'll help me perform.
Appreciate your time.
I'm going to go ahead and hop back into the garage there, and you can see our rivalry breakdown continuing to grow our lead against Lance Stroll there, and of course our teammate. We're still beating him pretty consistently here. And we're going to go ahead and take a peek at the resource points. The team goal for, I believe it was practice programs. I'm pretty sure it was practice programs. Yeah, practice programs. That was an easy one to finish up. An extra 500 points that we were desperately going to need for redeveloping all these parts before the next season. But a strong performance means other teams start to like us a little bit more.
Excellent result today. Finishes like that will look good on your contract reviews. On to the next one.
There we go. We've managed to survive Monza, and that is the last of the 2 power circuits that we ran. Spa and Monza. We are going to have a much tougher result for us coming up. Singapore is a very downforce and chassis heavy track. Definitely got some power sections, got some quick straights, but it's not as suited to our car as some of these other ones are. So let's go ahead. Obviously, we're going to have to repurchase this failed rear downforce development. It's really, really tough now that we're already having to re-spend resource points into finished developments in the chassis department because of the rules update. And we really want to avoid having to repurchase just failed straight up upgrades. So we're going to go ahead and check out all of our options in the R&D chart. We've fallen just behind Ferrari in the engine development section, so we're going to go ahead and drop some points into our major oil pressure upgrade to help out and get the powertrain back up to towards the top of the field. We've got 8 weeks left for 6 other developments, so if we do one every week or so, we should be good to go. But we do have a rear downforce hopefully coming for Singapore. Well, definitely coming for Singapore since it's the repurchase of a broken one, and then that next one should come Russia. But we've stayed ahead of Toro Rosso, and we are closing in on the rest of the midfield in the R&D development chart. As you can see now, that gearbox is pretty much shot. It's done. We're not going to be able to use it anymore. So we are definitely going to be taking a grid penalty at Singapore, which is a track that, much like Hungary, it's very technical, a lot of corners. I haven't run a lot of laps on it, so I'm still not super familiar with it. So hopefully we can have a good quality performance and you know, mitigate the loss of that penalty and turn in a good result there. But that is the end of our weekend here in Italy. We'll be heading to Singapore next for round 15 of the season of the 21 races. But thank you for joining me once again. I'll catch you guys next time.